Hello, can you hear me? Hello, good evening. Can you hear me, Prachi? Yeah, can you see me now? Okay, I can begin. Okay, you want to make an introduction or I can start right away? All right, okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I would like to first of all thank Sanchi University, Dr. Prachi Agarwal, for giving me an opportunity to discuss a very topical issue of India-China standoff and the dimensions of emerging power play in the globe today. First and foremost, I would like to pay my respects to the brave warriors, 20 of them, who gave up their lives in the line of duty. It's a unfortunate thing that it happened, and every Indian will rise to the occasion to support the nation in its endeavor to protect its sovereignty and security. Unfortunately, China, I think, has miscalculated this entire phase of its actions and reactions. First of all, it was COVID that started in Wuhan, and for a long time, China did not share this fact with the rest of the world, and even allowed travel, overseas travel, particularly during the time of Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year. And this allowed the virus to spread. Not that everyone was clear about the nature of this virus, perhaps including China, but they should have taken precautions and stopped travel and mixing of population globally. So you've seen the results. The results are that there are millions who are affected. There are as many number who are dying around the world. And the most affected countries are US, Italy, Iran, us, UK, Spain, and everybody else. So China seems to have miscalculated the moment, and they said perhaps this is the right time to strike. So what does it do? First of all, it initiates a lot of actions along its maritime border in South China Sea. So Vietnam vessel is rammed and sunk. It gets aggressive with Philippines, which has supported them. It carries out military flights in Japan in the East China Sea. Then it also now turns landwards and starts an aggression in Himalayas. This is where it's been very unfortunate, because instead of lending a hand to all the nations who are fighting COVID, here is a nation which is aspiring to be a #1 power, which indulges in hooliganism. We can only call this hooliganism, because it tries to use the so-called non-demarcated borders. It says there is a misperception in the identification of where the borders lie, and therefore it feels free to walk in and walk out whenever it wants. But on most occasions it walks in and stays put. And again here, when India was very busy trying to fight the COVID, with so many people who are affected, with migration issues which were there, health issues, getting up of ready-made kits, here is our Asian neighbor who decides to walk in the Himalayas. Most untimely, most immature, and unbecoming of a nation which is a United Nations Security Council member, and also the biggest Asian country and the second largest economy. By no stretch of imagination can anyone applaud these misadventures of China, whether it is in the South China Sea or in Himalayas, where we are facing the brunt. So it does this every time to say that, look, I think this is my area. You would have noticed that yesterday the whole of Galwan is also being claimed as its own, whereas there was no issue whatsoever whether it is on the Sikkim or in the Galwan area, strategic area. This is of course important strategically, but it is unfortunate that China amassed all its army, including heavy transport, and started building infrastructure. What has been the problem? The problem is that India, I think, perhaps has, in the decades, has not been too assertive. To be frank, whenever China made inroads, whether it's in Doklam or anywhere, always this idea of a misperception or lack of perception, clear perception on the border is what was used and even accepted in India. It's time that this is put to rest. Now, how can you have two big nations not knowing where the boundary lies? So 22 meetings have taken place, and at the end of it, if we still do not know where China thinks the borders lie, then there is something serious, and this is what is worrying to us. And China, many reasons have been propagated to say why China is indulging in this. And they are saying it's because of the fact that India has started building its infrastructure and roads and with connectivity, which was neglected for a long time. This is a fact that we neglected it for decades. You are always worried about what China will think. A defeatist attitude, a passive attitude by successive governments who said, what will China think if I build a road? What will China think if I reactivate an advanced landing ground? So this is this defeatist mindset that allowed China to encroach. That is, they would move in 3 steps, and after the negotiations go back 2 steps, and therefore they gained 1 step. And we are guilty of allowing China to get away with this kind of encroachment through the decades. So whether it's Aksai Chin, which was ceded to it in 1962, or whether it is the areas now it's claiming, or even Arunachal Pradesh for that matter, or even Sikkim, which has been accepted and had remained tranquil all these years, suddenly China is eyeing them with greedy eyes. Another reason which they say is perhaps India is cozying up to USA. I would like to ask, in which area have we been supported by China? The United Nations Security Council? No way. Whether it is proscription of Azhar Mahmood? No way. Whether it is POK? It even went to the United Nations Security Council in support of Pakistan to raise a bogey of POK, and of course it was failed and it became a closed door session when we abrogated the Article 370. Many people say that's also got to do with Article 370 because with that the Indian government has said that Aksai Chin is ours, and Ladakh, which has been re-carved out as a state, will ensure that all the lost territory will be regained. So there is, in China's eyes, a certain degree of provocation, and the time was ripe in its assessment to hit India and hit it hard. So therefore, the massive PLA armies came in very difficult terrain. When you look at the maps, the satellite maps are all available in public domain, and when you see them, you will realize how difficult these are. So the area which you are looking at is the Galwan area, where there are many ridges, and the Songcho Lake, where there are many fingers which go in from the ridge into the lake. 1/3 of this lake is managed by us, and 2/3 of this is managed by China. Again here, they are trying to have redrawing of the maps, which we call cartographic aggression. So what has it driven to? I think China has totally miscalculated. It thought by pressurizing India, it will make India fall in line with China's aspirations. It's also peeved that we took some actions to protect our national interest and sovereignty. You are aware that many distressed companies during COVID were being taken over by Chinese companies. The government came in with a provision to say this will not be allowed. The government will have a check. And today they have issued directives to BSNL to say that whatever contracts were to be drawn up for 4G complete network will be tweaked in such a manner that Chinese companies will not come in. This is a precursor to ensuring that China will not have any kind of entry for the 5G initiative where it's also being stuck. And just today, this morning, again there was this news saying all the 10 democratic countries, this is an initiative of UK, will get together to have a technological platform which will provide the counter to 5G. This is a Huawei initiative. So what else is happening? China, it did not look at India as an equal. It was looking at America to displace America as a number one company. But when you look at the kind of actions that China has taken, whether it is in South China Sea or the very aggressive designs against the weaker neighbors, both land-based and sea-based, is something which tells us that China is never to be trusted. I can here recount what late George Fernandez said when he was the Raksha Mantri. He said, let's be very clear, China is our number one enemy. No, this is something that he saw more than 30 years ago, and he did not mince words. And we are trying to cozy up to China to say, after all, he's a big neighbor, we must have good relations, we must prosper together. So whether it's Wuhan or Mamallapuram, regrettably, these on the face of it showed that there was some progress. But please remember that even when the president of the premier and all that were visiting India, simultaneously there was border clashes, Doklam was taking place, we had a 73 day standoff. So China has never been a trustworthy nation in terms of what it has done. It has used all unfair means for the intellectual property rights, IPR. Many of the students who are enrolled in USA were through the PLA, that is the People's Liberation Army, whose primary aim was to steal, the various things there and develop contacts. Today there is a report to say that billions of money were given to top institutions in USA by China, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. The whole intention was to buy out people, and I think America has already found out the people who are involved in espionage for China, and so it's never been adopting fair play. And look at the pictures that have come out, which all of you would have seen in WhatsApp. Some of the weapons that were used by them. In fact, both the sides were debarred from carrying weapons to avoid any kind of a confrontation with weapons. But what did they use? They came prepared with stones, with bamboo shoots, which were rolled with barbed wires. And when you see them, you will clearly say that this is a barbaric nation with no value for human life and no view for any kind of modern warfare. A soldier would not mind dying at the end of a bullet, or even a bayonet for that matter. But to be clubbed to death has enraged the soul of this country. And we need to pay China back in the same coin. So what are the emerging power plays that are taking place? China will be a pariah. Take it from me that China may have a lot of money, but it is not going to cow down even smaller neighbors. The quadrilateral, which India was too reluctant to push, will now become a harsh reality. So you will have America, Japan, Australia and India working together to have a common platform that will take on the Chinese threat in the newly designated Indo-Pacific area, which covers virtually from the east of Africa all the way to Australia. So Australia was also a reluctant partner all these days. They had not shown so much of initiatives, and suddenly you found that when Australia wanted clear investigation into the COVID episode and pointed its fingers at China, China indulged in trade warfare, started banning a lot of imports from Australia, and the relations are strained. So it's in this backdrop that the signing of a mutual support pact for the maritime forces of Australia and India is significant. So it gives us a foothold in the Western Pacific. It allows us to use the Quad as a platform to challenge the hegemony of China. And also we need to worry about a lot of other issues related to how to take on China. Over the last so many decades, it has achieved its double-digit growth by capturing markets worldwide. India is a huge market, with 1.3 billion people here, is a market that it wanted to capture, and it became the major hub of the global supply chain. And the global supply chain is virtually monopolized by China. And it's only after the COVID that everyone has realized that it was a big mistake to allow China to be at the center of a global supply chain where they have monopolized the entire supply chain. So this is something where the nations are taking a lead to move away from China. It's not going to be easy. Please remember that the size of Indian economy is hovering around 3 trillions. We want to become a $5 trillion economy, but with the COVID, there will be a certain amount of deterrence on this. I mean, a certain amount of deferment of this objective being achieved. And then we have China, which is nearly 5 times our economy, and America, which is a $20 trillion economy. So people may say that America is a state that is failing. It is not so, because when you look at the size of the economy, you will realize that America is still very capable, and China's distant dream will take a little more time to fructify, but it will not at all fructify given the kind of misadventures that China is indulging in across the globe. Philippines, a small state, his exclusive economic zone was encroached, and not being able to tolerate, it went to the Permanent Court of Arbitration in Hague, and where they gave the complete verdict in favor of Philippines. The Philippines, unfortunately, with the change of leadership, Duterte was engaged, and China cozied up to him with a lot of investments, and Duterte became virtually a vassal state of China. Again, this is changing because of the aggressive designs in Philippines, and Philippines, which wanted to delink from America, has now gone ahead and allowed America to use the VFA, that's the Vessel Facilitation Agreement, which was virtually in a dormant state. So, scene out there in the Indo-Pacific is changing. Vietnam is a small nation, but it gave a bloody nose to China when there was a war. And India, it was only in 1962 we faced a major defeat, thanks to the lack of vision on part of our political leadership, and also because of the fact that they thought that Hindi Chini bye bye will succeed and these two Asian neighbors will live in peace for ever after. It never happened. India was stabbed in the back, but thereafter, whether it is 67 or incidents thereafter, China has had to withdraw whenever it tried to carry out this. Not that it gave up on this, it tried to choose weak moments and keep on probing till India gave up. So this time they are facing a very resolute country which is on the upswing. Yes, we have our difficulties. It's not that everything is hunky-dory in India, but we have our self-respect intact, and a country like China cannot sort of bulldoze us and make you a vassal state. So the message is very clear that China is our number one enemy. There is a global new power dynamics that's evolving, and a lot of these are to our favor because the system of democracy, the power of people, the size of the economy, the initiatives taken by this government, and the historical, cultural ancestry that we have inherited is something that is a great source of inspiration for many other countries. It is just that we have not been able to cash on our strengths. We always play to our weaknesses, and which is what perhaps has led to the situation where we are trying to sort of, work from a position of disadvantage. This has to be sorted out. We are spending, the last year's defense budget was close to some 500,000 crores. What is the nation spending so much money for if we cannot defend our territory? What is the use of Apache aircraft which has come in, which is called as a flying gunship, if it cannot be used when required? Yes, the fear of war is always there, but Kargil has shown us that many of these confrontations will remain localized, And it is not that everybody is free to have an all-out war. There is a United Nations Security Council. There is a great degree of transparency. And there is a great support of India. As you saw today, so 185 nations have supported India's candidature in the UNGA. And we are there. So, who are the friends of China? I think China, our own Foreign Minister Jaishankar, External Affairs Minister, made it very clear in his dialogue with his counterpart to say it is China which violated the agreement of June 6th. The 6th June agreement was very clear to say that they must withdraw from the areas which they encroached and create a buffer zone. So the incident that took place was actually in the buffer zone where the Chinese had not vacated. So our brave hearts who went there unarmed were trying to check the veracity of an agreement and the enforcement that was required to be done to withdraw. They did not. On the contrary, a company of 120 were surrounded by people in riot gear who came with, antiquated Stone Age weapons. But unfortunately, when you are 120 and you are rounded up with 400 people, these people fought bravely and inflicted very heavy damage. But this has shown China that it is a nation that does not belong to 21st century. It is from the Stone Age and it must go back to where it belongs. I am sentimental, I am emotional when I see these bodies draped in the tricolor because they gave up their lives and it should not go in waste. It's pointless just lighting candles or having prayer marches unless you are able to defend your territory with the fullest resolve that this country is capable of, with the support of 1.3 billion people. We are not impotent. And this is the message that must come across. The statements that have come out from the Prime Minister and the official machinery is that we are not going to compromise. We are not going to bend. I can only say, I hope India walks the talk because the environment is favorable to show China its place. It cannot abrogate itself from the responsibility. I'm not sure how many of you are aware that it was India that gave up the seat of the United Nations Security Council to China, thanks to the largesse. Whatever be the reasons, we are not going to sit in judgment over it. But the point is that we showed this very good, measure, which has, bounced back and hit us hard. Because every time the veto has been used, that has been used to support Pakistan and to counter our ambitions and aspirations. So whether it is the nuclear supplier group, where our admission was put on hold, quoting some silly technical excuses, and then whenever we wanted to have proscription of Azhar Masood, again this was vetoed. So, on no occasion has China shown that it is a friend of India. It is intolerant of our progress. It's intolerant of our democracy. It's intolerant of the rich cultural heritage that we enjoy. It does not care to remember that the unofficial state religion even today in China is Buddhism, which went from India in the 1st century BC. So there is a lot that China has to, as in the words of our own External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, reassess its actions and responses. All its actions have been done in haste. Another analysis is that it's also due to some of the internal domestic problems that it's facing. It's not that it's totally homogeneous. Yes, everything is state controlled, including the media, including the social media. And we have the Chinese Communist Party, the CPC, and apparently according to some reports from within, they have said that there is some dissent that's brewing. And while China wants to lecture everybody else about its sovereignty to be respected, it cares two hoots for the sovereignty of others, whether it's Vietnam Exclusive Economic Zone, or whether it is India, or whether it is Philippines, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Malaysia. It does not care. Not only does it not care, it goes around investing in disputed areas such as the China-POK Economic Corridor. Everybody calls it CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, but I would not like to call it CPEC because that legitimizes the thing to Pakistan. I would like to call it the China POK economic corridor because it's Pak occupied Kashmir. How dare China invest in an area that belongs to us? And how is that India has kept quiet and has not gone there just as it tries to come into Galwan saying it's my area? Why is that we have not gone into POK? So these are things that is not something that's happened overnight. It's happened because of 7 decades of inaction, passivity, pusillanimity expressed by this country. No, despite many advances, we have not learnt our lessons vis-a-vis our big neighbor, who is a bully, who cannot be trusted, who needs to be spoken to with in a language that it understands, which is a language of strength. But your strength cannot be achieved again overnight. It requires calibrated, measured responses. It cannot be sudden decoupling. Any sudden decoupling will result in accidents. But the right way has been adopted, which is to keep control on what kind of investments are coming into India, number one, to ensure that the technological areas of investment are monopolized by China, as I told you about BSNL, where the contracts will be tweaked to ensure that China does not become a major player. And in fact, there is another report to say that there is a railway contract connecting Surat and another place at a contract of 1,300 crores, which will be backed by China. This has to be shown the door. The justification being given is it is not China, it is Asia Infrastructure Investment Board that's funding this 1,300 crores. But if it is China, we'll tell them we do not want this money. We'll continue to travel in the broad gauge trains which are good enough at this moment. Let's ride over and then we'll see who else is to be invited. We'll get Japan here, but not China. So I think we got to be very clear in sending the message to China and to say it cannot take India, a country of 1.3 billion with a huge market, for granted. There's a lot of uproar in the social media about banning Chinese products. Like I said, it has monopolized the global supply chain and it's everywhere. Perhaps the laptop that I am using, in which I am talking, will also have many Chinese components. But that's the reality of today. So therefore, it cannot be done overnight to check out China and create an alternate global supply chain. But all the measures that are required to move away from this clutches of the dragon. Some of them have referred to the dragon as a lizard. I would like to use that in this forum, but that's what it is. The dragon or a lizard that is masquerading as a dragon. So I am very angry when I see these pictures of the weapons that they've used against our unarmed soldiers, and it definitely makes our blood boil. And revenge not just in military terms, but revenge to put China back in its place, economically, diplomatically, politically, strategically. If you are willing, there are many options. Nobody is saying go to war. Like I said, the option for a limited confrontation, whenever you feel that they have encroached into your area, is available. Your 500,000 crore defense equipment that's available, whether it's Army, Navy, Air Force, strategic air forces, what are they doing? These are the times when they are required to be used in a limited manner. Show them that you have force, you have power, and you have the willingness, above all, to use this, and not that you will accept everything that is thrust upon you by a belligerent neighbor who has never proved to be trustworthy. So there's always this kind of a double talk, hypocrisy, one standard for me, one standard for you. I will invest in POK, CPOK economic corridor. You cannot invest in Vietnam. You cannot go to Malaysia Malaysia cannot send Petronas for oil drilling. This kind of a double standard from a country that aspires to be a number one power is something that is distasteful. China needs to be condemned on all counts. On the biggest count of not being able to honor international commitments. If on the 6th of June you agreed that you will withdraw, why did you not honor that commitment, but on the contrary indulge in trying to erect tents in an area which was supposed to be a buffer zone, and then shamelessly bring 500 people to beat up 120 of our soldiers and kill them? Cold-blooded murder. This is something that cannot be accepted by any standards. It's shameful, it is disgraceful, And China does not deserve the high seat in the United Nations Security Council. All that we need to do is to remain united and not allow petty things amongst us to divide the country. Some of them are aiming to divide the country using this opportunity. There are many of this. That is the perils of a democracy. But at least in these hours of crisis, we have demonstrated in the past that we will come together and we will take on this challenge and we will strive to grow as a nation, prosper as a nation. We have a lot more advantages that China does not have. A free press, a secular fabric, a university, unity in diversity, and the kind of soft power credentials that China craves to possess. Money does not buy love. You may have $13 trillion. Also, please remember that even today, despite China's best efforts, yuan or the RMB is not a universal currency. It is a dollar. The power of the dollar is still there. And China realizes this and is trying to overcome this deficiency of, trying to get a universal convertibility to its own RMB. It's in some baskets, but it's again a long way before it can achieve the status of giving credibility. It also has the so-called BRI or the Belt Road Initiative, in which it has invested a lot of money. Trillions of money is going in. And a lot of this is in Asia, Africa, and even Europe. But many of these nations have realized today that it was a folly to invest, to allow China to invest in these, very ambiguous projects, including Pakistan. Pakistan, many of the thermal plants where they have invested are all coal-fired plants. So it is committed to green energy. It does not invest in coal plants within its borders, but exports antiquated coal plants to Pakistan to pollute the environment. So I sign and I abide by the control emission strategy within my borders, but I will export my old plants to Pakistan and others who are on the Belt Road Initiative map or the Maritime Silk Road. These are the kind of double standards, and China needs to be exposed on all counts, whether it is the IPR, intellectual property rights theft, whether it is its devious ways of getting into universities, advanced universities in Western Europe, and thereafter spreading its nets amongst the intellectuals, buying them out by lure of money. So what kind of a nation are you? This is the question that I would like to ask. I will not trust you. Having been in the services for over 34 years, I have never treated you as my friend. It was an external appearance, a facade, to which we, I think, perhaps fell a prey to your designs of achieving your objective by using the weaker nations, including India. Weaker in terms of economy, not weak as a nation. Yes? So therefore, no, it's also a greed of humans, whether it's in America or India. You get a cheap product, you would like to go and buy. And China cashed on these human sentiments of, cashing on the greed of humans, where you go and, initially for about 30 years, it was cheap labor in China that allowed them to capture the markets globally. Whether it's Walmart or whether it's any of the initiatives here, whether it's e-commerce, anything that you talk about, it was able to capture. But the cost of living has gone up there. It's not cheap labor anymore. And they who maintained a double-digit growth for more than 3 decades are not in a position to maintain the double-digit anymore. And so it's not that everything is hunky-dory. It is an external, appearance of a country that's in full control of itself. Now, talking about occupied areas, we must remember that perhaps you made a big blunder in allowing China to overrun Tibet. Tibet is an occupied territory of China. Taiwan is an area where we said we will accept the one China policy. Again, it gave a lot of advantage to China. You've seen what's happening in Hong Kong. There are protesters up in arms because it wants to bring in the same kind of stringent law that violates privacy clauses of citizens of Hong Kong who are used to democracy and human values, thanks to the presence of the British for so many years. And obviously, initially they said, no, it will be one country, two systems. And what is it that we have today? An effort by a muzzling China which wants to invade the privacy of Hong Kong citizens and bring in all the laws that are applicable in China. In China, because of the advancements in technology, they are today able to use their artificial intelligence, facial recognition, and virtually every street post, in Tibet has a camera. It will tell you what the Tibetan is doing. So, I think we have not acted wisely in national interest, whether it is acceptance of Taiwan, giving away United Nations Security Council seat to China, or whether accepting some of the advances that they made in terms of Taiwan declarations. I don't think we done acted wisely, because we thought that the dragon and the elephant can dance together. But that is something that has deluded us, and commencing 1962, there is not a single occasion where China has supported India. It has only looked at India as a market which is to be captured, a country that needs to be subjugated by economic means, and also later perhaps by military and strategic means. So this is the situation that we are in. I'll just take another 2 or 3 minutes. I'm not sure if there are any question answer sessions available. I'm not sure. So if there is anything, I'll try and answer them. So what is the power game that's erupting? China appeared to be in the center stage, which it is, but it's losing that spot thanks to its own misdoings and miscalculations, particularly after COVID. It made a lot of false claims about COVID to start with, and went about beating its chest to say we contained COVID. Look what's happening in Beijing. There's a new strain of virus that's developed in Beijing, and suddenly they realized they cancelled something like 60% of their flights. So not that the virus has spared China. Initially they were able to contain by a lot of misinformation and not allowing any travel out of Hubei province, which is where Wuhan is located. And so you have not been a responsible state, China, and you, Mr. Xi, have let down the entire world by your misadventures. So I would only like to repeat what our External Affairs Minister said. It is time for China to reassess its actions and also the responses of the world, to recalibrate its own new path, without which it will face the doomsday. Yes, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but it will work towards this destiny towards which the rest of the world will contribute for China to dig its own grave. China, many have predicted, will even be balkanized. So be it. So, this here is where, what it has done is, perhaps it tried to put a lot of pressure on India to bring India under its umbrella. This has boomeranged, and China is regretting its actions of initiating this misadventure in the border, because it's miscalculated the response of India under the present leadership. Yes, we paid with our lives, but we are not going to pay with our sovereignty and self-respect, whatever it takes. As it said, India is an agricultural country, and I reminded you that when after the Pokhran, when we declared ourselves as a nuclear power, we lived with the sanctions for more than 2.5 years. It's at that time we learned, reinvented India, which was capable of innovativeness, which was capable of finding fresh solutions to the challenges posed by the West, which imposed those heavy sanctions on us. So China, in comparison, will take you on. We have our strengths, we will work towards that China. I hope, the message is loud and clear to all the audiences that we are not going to let down our country. Thank you. Jai Hind. If there be any questions, I'll take them on. I'm not sure if there is a format here which encourages questioning. I do not see anything on my screen. But if there be anything, you can always send it to either Dr. Prachi Agarwal, who is the coordinator of this program, China Converse. They're doing a wonderful job. And also to my mail, which is director.c3s@gmail.com, or my personal mail. I also have a Facebook account. You can post your questions there or send a mail, and it will only be a pleasure to respond to any of these queries so that we are quite clear about how to deal with these new challenges posed by an untrustworthy neighbor called China. Thank you. Jai Hind. Have a nice day.